Come to child's pose. Close your eyes. Slightly constrict the back of your throat, activating Ujjayi breathing. That's where you breathe in and out of your nose, and you make your breath sound like Darth Vader. Try to make the length of your inhales match the length of your exhales. The theme for today's class is preparation for handstand. So we will be working on moves that strengthen the shoulders, the core, and work on your balance. With that in mind, go ahead and set an intention for today's class. Come up to a tabletop position. Wiggle it out here. Take whatever movements feel good in table. And then kick your feet back, plank pose. Shoulders over wrists, tailbone twisting back towards your heels, heels fighting back behind you. Slowly lower down, chaturanga, and then inhale up to a back bend of your choice. Cobra or mini cobra, up dog, and then exhale to downward facing dog, the first downward dog of today's class. You can pedal out your dog, feel a stretch in the back of the legs. Exhale, bring your feet to your hands. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, down, forward fold. And then grab opposite elbows or biceps and hang in a ragdoll position. Your knees can be bent as much as you need here. Leaning on the left foot more and then the right foot. Lower your hands down to the mat and then slowly ragdoll up, stacking vertebrae on top of vertebrae. Shoulders come up, head comes up last. Palms forward, mountain pose. Twisting your tailbone back and down, activating your glutes and your core. Inhale your arms up overhead, gaze past your fingertips to the sky, and then exhale, hands come to prayer at heart center. Inhale your arms back up overhead. Exhale, forward fold down. Inhale to a halfway lift. Exhale, plant your hands, jump back to plank. You can also step back to plank, lower down, chaturanga. Come to Sphinx pose, so forearms on the mat, palms down, gaze is forward, shoulders are down away from the ears, top of the hips maybe coming off the mat slightly here. A nice gentle back bend. breathing, connecting here. Go ahead and tuck your toes and then lift up into a forearm plank. And from here, lift up into a full plank. Make sure there's a straight line from your shoulders to your heels. You can lower your knees down to the mat, coming to a tabletop position. Make sure your wrists are over your shoulders. Your shoulders are over your wrists and your hips are over your knees. And take some cat-cows to your breath. So as you inhale into cow pose, you look forward, belly drops, hips raised back behind you. And exhale, arch your back up, gaze at the navel, tuck your chin. And then inhale to cow and exhale to cat at your own pace with your own breath. Come to a neutral spine. Kick your heels off to the side, lower your seat down to the mat, and extend your legs out in front of you. We're going to come to a seated twist. So your left leg extends out, toes are flexed, your right leg comes over the left, your left hand comes behind you. Inhale your right arm forward and exhale, twist to the left, connecting your right elbow to your left knee. If you want to take the pose a little further, you can take your left heel towards your seat into half Lord of the Fishes pose. As you inhale, your spine gets straighter and taller, and as you exhale, you twist more from the belly button to the left. So take deep breaths here in this gentle twist. Come back to center and then counter twist to the right. Then come back to center and switch legs. So now your right leg extends out forward, flex those right toes, left leg comes over right. Your right arm comes behind you, and you inhale your left arm up, and as you exhale, you twist to the right. If you want to take the pose deeper, your right heel can come towards your seat. Come back to center, take a counter twist to the left, and then come back to center and extend both legs out, and then bring the bottom of your right foot to your left inner thigh. We're going to do a hamstring stretch on the left leg. So you can either inhale with a flat back and exhale over the toes with both hands, or you can bring your right arm overhead, stretching the right side body as you stretch that left hamstring. So take whichever variation you prefer. If your knee is really high up, you can use a block. Come back up. Switch legs. So now right leg extends out, right toes are flexed. The bottom of your left foot comes onto the inner thigh of the right leg. Your right arm reaches out to the toes, and you can bring your left arm out as well with a flat back, or that left arm can come overhead so that you're stretching out the left side body now. Choose your stretch. Inhale back up. Come to an easy seat position, crossing your ankles, knees out to the sides, and then roll over your knees into a tabletop position. From here, kick your feet back, plank pose, lower down, chaturanga. Inhale to a back bend of your choosing, and then exhale to a downward facing dog. We'll take some sun salutations after a few breaths in dog with the breath. So exhale your feet to the hands and inhale to a halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, arms sweep up overhead with a flat back. Exhale, palms to heart center. Inhale, arms back up. Exhale, down with a flat back, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale to plank and chaturanga down. Inhaling to your back bend and exhaling to downward facing dog. Inhale your right leg up and exhale it through to meet your hands. Come up to a crescent lunge. So a nice 90-degree bend in that front knee. Back leg is straight and strong. And now lower that back knee down and untuck your back toes. Bring your hands to rest on your front knee and keep your hips square to the front of the mat, and then push forward so that you feel a stretch in that left front hip. That is the psoas muscle. So that should feel really good as you stretch there. And you can position your hips differently if you're not quite feeling it. You can also bring that back knee a little closer forward if it's too much, or you can take that knee further back if you need more of a stretch. Once you've got that figured out, you want to bring your back heel towards your seat and reach back with your left arm, grabbing the top of the foot, stretching the quad. So make sure you're twisting your tailbone back and down behind you. That helps get a deeper stretch in your quad muscle. And breathe here. If you're having some trouble with balance, you can always take that front foot and heel toe it out towards the side of your mat, the edge of your mat. This is one of those stretches that needs a lot of oxygen and some more time than other poses, so let's go ahead and give our bodies what they need. Slowly lower that back leg back down to the mat and make your way to downward facing dog. A few breaths here. Then bend your knees and bring them to your hands, inhaling halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms sweep up overhead. Exhale, prayer at heart center. Inhale the arms up overhead. Exhale, fold. Inhale, come up halfway. Exhale, plant the hands, step or hop back to plank, lower down chaturanga. Then inhale to your back bend. And then exhale over your toes, downward facing dog. Let's work out that other side. On an inhale, left leg comes up behind you. Exhale, kick it through. Pop up to a crescent lunge. Holding here, connecting with the pose, back leg straight and strong. Slowly lower that back leg down to the mat and untuck those toes. We're going to do the psoas stretch on the right side now. So you should feel a nice stretch in the right hands on the right hip. At this point, if you're watching the video, you might be wondering what we're doing. We decided to play some pop music for today's class, so please don't mind the goofiness that is happening visually. Reach back and grab that heel, or grab the top of the foot, stretching the quad on the other side. You can go ahead and lower that back leg. Make your way to downward dog. Wiggle it out. Breathe here. On an exhale, bring your feet to your hands and come up halfway lift. Forward fold. Arms sweep up overhead. Prayer at heart center. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, plank, chaturanga down, inhaling to your back bend, then exhaling over those toes to downward facing dog. Lower your forearms down, making contact with the mat. Come into dolphin pose. And if you're feeling the beat like I am, you can go ahead and kick your legs back behind you. So you can alternate kicking right leg and then left with your breath or to the beat of a song that's playing in your house right now or wherever you are. Or if you're like me, maybe there's a song in your head that you can rock out to. Slowly lift back up from dolphin pose to downward dog. Exhale, feet to hands, halfway lift, forward fold, arms sweep up overhead. Exhale, prayer at heart center. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, swan dive forward with a flat back into a forward fold. Come back up halfway and then lower down, plank, chaturanga. Inhaling to a back bend. Exhaling to downward facing dog. Inhale your right leg up behind you, and then exhale it through and pop up into a crescent lunge. A few breaths here in crescent. Transition into a warrior two pose. Breathing here. Windmill your hands down to the mat and kick your front foot back to downward facing dog. Few breaths here in dog. On an exhale, feet come to hands, halfway lift, forward fold, arms up, flat back, overhead, prayer at heart center, arms back up overhead, swan dive, forward fold, come up halfway, and then plank, chaturanga, back bend, meet us in dog. And let's work out that other side. So on an inhale, the left leg rises up behind us. Exhale, it meets the hands. Pop up to a crescent lunge. Nice strong back leg. I'm just saying that to distract you from what's happening in that front knee. Transition into a warrior two pose. Breathing here into connecting with the pose. Windmill your arms down to the mat and kick it back to downward dog. Exhale, feet to hands. Come up halfway. Forward fold. Arms sweep up overhead. Prayer at heart center. Arms up overhead, forward fold, down. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, plank, chaturanga down. Inhaling to your back bend and exhaling over the toes to downward facing dog. From here, bring your knees to the corners of the mat, to the edges of the mat rather, and sink your hips down towards your heels, coming into child's pose. Resting here, mentally preparing for a challenging sequence coming up. Come up to a tabletop position and then transition from there back into a downward facing dog. From here, come into a plank pose. Then bring your left hand to the center of the mat and raise your right arm to the sky, side plank. From here, transition into rock star pose. Make sure your feet are parallel. And your right arm can come overhead behind you. Hips raising up to the sky. Then bring your right arm up to the sky and transition back into a plank for a second. And then transition into a side plank. This time, left arm raises up to the sky. From here, go into rock star on the other side. Feet are parallel, hips are raised, and now your left arm is overhead. Bring your left arm up, transition to plank, then downward facing dog. Then exhale your feet to the hands, halfway lift, forward fold, arms up overhead, prayer at heart center, arms up, fold down, Come back up halfway. Plank and chaturanga. Back bend. Downward facing dog. Inhale your right leg up. Exhale it through to your hands. Spin up past warrior 2, coming into reverse warrior. Feeling a nice stretch in the side body. Make sure you're bending into that front knee. Make sure it's not tracking inward, so bring that knee towards the small toe. Come into side angle pose, so right elbow on front knee, very gently. Left arm up to the sky, gaze past your fingertips, and take any variation you'd like. So you can have your left arm overhead, you can come into a bind. Any variation here of side angle pose, you can just stay in classic, whatever you would like. Remember the intention you set at the beginning of class. Come out of your bind and bring your hands down to the mat and kick it back to downward facing dog. And if you weren't in a bind, don't worry. No judgment, none from me. Binds are tough. It took me a few years before I could bind. Exhale your feet to your hands, come up halfway. Exhale, lower down. Inhale, arms up with a flat back. Prayer at heart center. Inhale up. Exhale, forward fold. Come up halfway. Plant the hands, plank. Chaturanga. Exhale to downward facing dog. Let's work out that other side. Oh, I guess I forgot to work out that other side. If you would like to take a reverse warrior and a side angle on the other side, you may. And I forgot to do that in the class today. That's pretty common though. It's not the greatest, but it's pretty common. So after you're done with your reverse warrior and then your side angle pose on the other side, the next pose is to come into a yogic squat and then practice a crow pose. So we're going to be practicing for a little while. So don't worry about catching up to us. But when you are done with your reverse warrior and your side angle, maybe even your bind on the other side, practice crow pose with us. So from the yogic squat, bring your hands down to the mat, fingers splayed out, and then raise your hips up behind you and squeeze your legs into your triceps. Some people also tuck their knees into their armpits, but you might be able to get a little bit of a better crow if you squeeze your legs rather than rest your legs in your armpits. And then just play around. So try to get one toe off the ground and then the other. Once you're in crow, you can transition from there back into a yogic squat, or you can kick your legs back behind you, coming into chaturanga pose. And then from there, take up dog, and then from there, exhale back into a downward dog or a child's pose. So take whichever movements make sense to you in your practice right now. If you're watching the video, you'll see that I'm playing with the class, teaching them crow. Teaching might be a generous word. It's more playing with my class. So maybe you're still practicing crow, or maybe you've already transitioned into chaturanga and then your back bend and then downward facing dog. And maybe you're resting in child's pose. If you are in child's pose or downward facing dog, we're going to transition onto our seats and come into boat pose. So come onto your seats and then bring your legs up so that your calves are parallel with the mat. And then open your chest to make sure your shoulders are away from the ears and your arms extend out and they should be parallel with your thighs, palms facing together. Back is straight and strong, neck is flat. And if that's too easy, you can always extend your feet. From here, transition into a standing pose. So come out of boat and come to standing on your mat. And then spill the weight into your left leg and bring your right leg to your calf or your inner thigh. Hands come to prayer at heart center, setting up for tree pose. Once you have your balance, your arms can raise up, your branches reaching towards the sky. Maybe even you're taking some slight movements, waving your branches. If you have that song in your head, or if there is a song playing, you can be rocking to the beat like we are in the video. Slowly transition out of the pose. Shake it out and then spill the weight into your right leg and bring your left leg up. Get a stable base, hands come to prayer at heart center. And when you're stable, arms come up on the other side. So now we're rocking on tree on the other leg. Hands come back to prayer at heart center. Slowly lower that leg and shake it out. So, we've been doing moves in today's class that have been prepping us for a handstand. So if handstand is in your practice, get into it. And if you are working on your handstand like I am and like we are in this class, what you want to do is you can have some cushioning for your hands if you'd like, and you want to find a wall or a door or a pole, something that you can basically use to help in your handstand, because you don't have to just pop up into a handstand, but what you want to do is you want to have your hands down, you want to be up on your hands, and then use your legs to walk up the pole. And what you're doing is you're developing your shoulder strength even more, and you're developing your core strength here, and then you're just testing out one leg up in the handstand position. So one leg, the other leg is still on the wall or the pole or the door, wherever it is that you've got to support you, and then just play around here. Make sure that your shoulders are not hugging your ears, so you're really pushing your shoulders away from the ears, and you're activating your core, twisting your tailbone back and down to help stabilize you in the handstand pose. So I will be silent so you can focus and concentrate. And when you are done practicing handstand, you can come to a child's pose. So practice for as long as you'd like, and I will let you know when you can start transitioning into child's pose. Take a few more breaths in your practice and slowly start to safely transition out of whichever pose you are in and come into a restful, recovering child's pose. From child's pose, come into a tabletop position, and then transition into a standing pose. We are going to set up for eagle. So the weight spills into your left leg. You can bend that left knee. Right leg comes over left. Arms come to a T position, and then your left arm comes over the right arm, your palms touch, bring your elbows up to the same height as your shoulders, and then move your palms away from your face. And what you want to feel here is a nice stretch in the back of the shoulders, in the shoulder blades. Some people call that the middle of the back. And you can basically play with the pose until you feel a really nice stretch back there. Now gently come out of the pose and start to transition into the pose on the other side. So weight spills into the right leg, left leg wraps around, arms come to a T, and now right arm comes over left. Palms meet, eagle pose. Slowly come out of eagle pose. If you're not at the top of your mat, come to the top of your mat. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, fold. And then slowly lower down onto the mat and come onto your back. We're going to set up for bridge pose. So bring your feet hips width distance apart. You should be able to brush your heels with your hands and now lift your hips up. Tuck onto your shoulders so your shoulders come together behind you. Your arms, your hands, and your fingers interlace into a fist underneath your seat. Really activate your glutes here and your quads. That's the front thigh muscles up. You want a lot of height in those hips. Neck is flat, chin slightly tucked here. Come back down out of the pose and bring your knees to your chest. Squeezing gently and rocking left to right. Now bring your arms to a T and bring both knees together to the right and gaze to the left past your fingertips. So make sure your shoulders, both shoulders are still touching the mat here. And if you can't get both knees to stay together when they're to the right, you can lower your knees towards your heels slightly. A nice twist. Bring your knees back to center and then transition them to the other side. So your knees now come to the left and your gaze is to the right past your right hand fingertips. Breathing into this twist. Bring your knees back to center. Give them a final squeeze. Rock left to right gently. And now lower your legs down to the mat, letting your feet splay open, hands to the side, palms facing up. This is Shavasana, the final resting pose. Let your mind focus in on every muscle in your body individually, so one at a time. Do a body scan and gently release every muscle into the ground beneath you. Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventured, piteous overthrows do with their death bury their parents' strife. The fearful passage of their death-marked love, and the continuance of their parents' rage, which, but their children's end, naught could remove, is now the 2 hours' traffic of our stage. The which if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. That is the soliloquy from the opening lines of Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. Slowly start to introduce movement back into your physical bodies. You can take some wider, bigger movements. You can bring your arms overhead and stretch from fingertips to toes. Bring your knees to your chest, giving it a gentle squeeze. and rock gently from left to right. Roll over onto your right side in fetal position and rest your right cheek on your right bicep. With your eyes still closed, push off with your left hand and come to a comfortable seated position at the top of your mat. Your hands can be palm facing down on your knees or palm up, or in prayer position at heart center. Thank yourself for coming to the mat today and being kind to your mind and your body. The light in me shines in the light in you. Namaste.